this is the number one thing I think I hear from my consulting and questions is about money. So, and the secret to stop stressing over your money is budgeting. So a budget is not about restricting what you can spend. It gives you permission to spend without guilt or regret. And again, just like we talked about with couples, they must both be actively involved in finances, talk to each other, listen to each other, and work together. So I recommend sitting down as a couple at least once a month to go over budgets and plans and have a good conversation around it. So here's a couple websites that you can check out for budgeting if you're interested. So ic.gc.ca and canada.ca under the Financial Consumer Agency. There's some really good tools the government has set up for us because they do want us to be financially healthy, which is really, really important. So if you're uncertain where your budget is now, that is totally fine. That is really, really common when people go, I don't know where my money is. So it's a good idea to start tracking everything. You can look back and just write down everything you spend and be very conscious of it. So, you know, we'll go take $100 out of the bank machine and then all of a sudden it's gone, but we haven't really thought about where it goes. We need to really track where every dollar goes to have a really good understanding. So some budgeting mistakes are not tracking expenses, buying on impulse, becoming the victim of budget busters, like that's just buying without really thinking about it, or being so frugal it makes you miserable. I've seen that happen too. And it's hard when one person in a couple's one way and the other person's the other way. It causes lots of tension. Trying to do everything as inexpensively as possible and not asking for help. So really important to distinguish between needs and wants, because there's needs like you need to have shelter and food and take care of your health. Want is traveling, you know, going out for dinner, movies, that kind of stuff. So benefits of doing a budget, it prevents a crisis. You never know what will come up. And I think a lot of people face that when the pandemic hit and all of a sudden they're off work for a while or they were unemployed and they had no money. So really important to have to help that you're not under the gun already with things. Get the most out of your money, do your homework on purchases, investments, borrowing, revenue streams. Managing an irregular income, which is more and more common if you're a salesperson or if you're an entrepreneur. That's a tough one for people to manage, and they kind of use that as a bit of a cop-out. I can't do it because I have inconsistent income, but you have to start somewhere. You have to plan. So you can plan for the average or lowest if possible and take advantage of highs to support lows. You need to plan for major changes. I often recommend if people are going to buy a house that they practice, or even when they, another major changes if they retire, is to practice before they pull the trigger. Because it might seem like it'd be easy to do, but when you live under that stress of taking on a home or retirement, it's hard to back out of that. Experience the freedom of having money in the bank. There's so many people that live paycheck to paycheck and it's very uncomfortable. It's a great place to be that you actually have money in the bank. Really important also to budget for your goals. So when you're budgeting and you have all your stuff, like you're going to pay your utilities, your gas for your car, your rent or your mortgage or that kind of stuff, you also want to have a budget item for any of your goals. So if you want to go on a trip or buy a car or anything, or even retire someday, you want to include budget items in that. So you save to achieve your goals, because you never want to borrow for anything other than buying a home. Important to have an emergency account. So when I talk to people, and if they have a fair bit of debt or some debt, I say to start off with $1,000 emergency fund until they dig themselves out of debt, because $1,000 gets us through most bumps that we're going to hit without having to use credit. Because I find if people don't have that money, a little bit of a baby emergency account to start, and it's like, oh, they have to use credit. It's like, oh, I didn't want to, but I already used it. I might as well use it again. It's almost kind of like falling off a diet. It's like, oh, I already ate that, so I might as well eat something else. So having that $1,000 gets us through most of our hiccups that we face, like the muffler falls off the car or something like that. And then just always make sure we have that $1,000 emergency set up. Once you're totally debt free, other than your mortgage, you want to set up an emergency fund of about 6 months of expenses so that you can ride through most anything and have that peace of mind when you go to sleep at night that you're okay. Because something could come up, unexpected costs could come up. So it frees you from the middle of the nights. Insurance is something that we all have to think about and consider. You don't want to be overpaying, but you want to make sure that you're adequately protected. I've seen, unfortunately, situations where people don't have insurance that have financially crippled them. For example, a couple with children did not get any life insurance, and unfortunately, one of them passed. So that can bankrupt people, and I've seen people lose their homes over that and stuff. And term life insurance can be usually fairly inexpensive, especially the younger you are, just to protect your family and stuff. So really important to look into. Just like we need to have car insurance, and we need to have health insurance and home insurance and that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that you think about the what ifs. So you always want to take the long view. And that's why we talked about insurance, to say what the what ifs are, kind of plan through what happens if I lose my partner, what happens if I get sick, what would happen. So I always want to kind of look down and anticipate. Just share this about budgeting.
And when you do your first budget, you will have this release moment, like you breathed in cool mountain air, like a sigh. Because when you do your budget and you really detail everything out, very seldom are things as bad as they felt when you didn't know the details. Not knowing the details is a monster in the closet. The boogeyman is in the closet, and he's never really there as bad as you think he is. And when you do that first budget, that's why I always tell people you feel like you got a raise. And the reason is you feel like there's not enough money when you're overwhelmed. You feel like, oh, we're stuck. Oh my gosh, no, we're going to die. And you go into drama queen mode, right? But as soon as you do the budget, it all calms down. It's like, I think we can do this.
I love Dave Ramsey. I don't agree with 100% of what he says, but almost. Like he's helped so many people with their financial health and stuff. He's great. So you might want to check him out.